Before we get started, this video is sponsored by FaB Foundry, one of the first Flesh and Blood specialized game stores in the world, a pillar of the local FaB community in Portland, Oregon, a world tour organizer, and my personal favorite LGS. FaB Foundry is your one-stop shop for all things FaB related, whether that's singles, sealed product, playmats, sleeves, dice and tokens, especially featuring products from Metal FaB and Thai cards. FaB Foundry also offers a rewards program, which you can use to get store credit back on all your purchases. So please go check out FaB Foundries, support our local community in Portland, and use our promo code FleshandBad for a discount on your next singles order. Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flesh and Bad, and today I wanted to go over some of the Jarl lists from the Calling Copenhagen. So I haven't played a ton of Jarl on the channel, mainly because I've kind of not felt super inspired. Mainly like the Gravy meta is currently going on. Some of Gravy's conversion, especially in like the Pro Tour Singapore, has been quite poor. So I wanted to actually take a look at some of the Jarl decks that were coming out of the Calling Copenhagen, because these Jarl decks actually did significantly better. So there are two kind of like styles of list I want to kind of like talk about. So there's this list from Luca Leko. I'm going to pull this one up here. So this is kind of like a standard kind of like decomposing Jarl, which is running like Felling of the Crowns, Plow Hunters, like all your good kind of like Earth cards and stuff like that. But there's actually some new tech that was kind of present in, I guess, the Calling Copenhagen. And there's kind of like a story behind this, which I'm kind of going to summarize a little bit from Purple Discord. But basically, there's this guy, I think Michael Metallo, who's I think a pretty known Guardian player. And he was playing a very interesting kind of like fatigue Jarl list. I think he was playing it at kind of like a smaller tournament. So anyways, that guy's teammate, Jason Rolfe, decided to take that list to the Calling Copenhagen, and he actually top 8 with the list, which is very impressive. I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for like a video from Jason on kind of like his choices and matchups and all that kind of good stuff as well. But yeah, so Jason Rolfe basically took this list that Michael Metallo had made and kind of like iterated on it. And we also saw that I think Pablo Bentor was playing a very similar style list. If we go here. So yeah, Pablo Bentor also playing Jarl, which is very, very cool as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at Jason's list, which I think is basically like completely kind of turns like the Jarl deck building around in like a completely different direction. And I'm going to actually pull this up in Fabry just to make it a little bit easier. But this list is just a pure fatigue pile list. And you might be asking, like, why even play Jarl in the first place? Like, these are all just a bunch of generics, and there actually is like a kind of compelling reason. So I think there are like 3 main reasons you want to play Jarl. One is that you get access to Everbloom Life, which allows you to have basically like kind of an infinite in your deck. Like you can basically just play Everbloom Life for +1 life. If you ever get your opponent down to the point where they're not sending a ton of damage every turn, like you can basically go infinite with this. You also have access to Frozen Death, which is one of the ways that you can actually basically win the Gravy matchup, right? You can Imposing Visage for your Crumble to Eternity, draw Frozen Death plus an Ice card, and then that basically locks Gravy out of playing the game for a bit. There are some things that Gravy can do against like Frozen Death, and like they can set up some pretty insane like pitch cycles and stuff like that. But what we saw from the Calling Copenhagen is that like not a lot of the Gravy deck lists were actually super fatigue oriented. Like a lot of people have been cutting down on Whalers. A lot of people have just like not been respecting like fatigue, which is kind of like what this deck is basically preying on. So in this deck, we have access to basically every pseudo D-reactant in the game. We have Fiddler's Green as like life gain. We have the Shelters, and the Fates, and the Sinks. We also just have Pulse of Islov, you know, funny one that's always just makes its way in Jarl decks. And basically the goal for this deck is to just raw fatigue everyone. There are a couple decks that I think that this maybe is a little bit concerning into, like Verdance, but I think that there is probably a game plan for Verdance, which we have basically AB4 here. No Oasis, which is interesting. I think I normally run like some number of Oasis into Verdance, but there's probably like a pretty decent reason for that. I've done my best to kind of like figure out the sideboard, but what I would imagine the sideboard is that we're probably just running like 60 plus cards into basically every matchup. I cut like the Righteous Cleansing. I don't know. Probably Righteous Cleansings are like main deck and stuff like that. But like I assume that for the most part, like this is basically just you're gonna bring your full deck into everyone and basically just trying to fatigue people out. So that's kind of like the raw game plan here. And I wanted to mention the third reason why Jarl And that's why I think where Coronet P comes in. So this is, I think, an interesting card for like keeping your opponents like off tempo. Since it's a nice equipment, only Jarl can run it. So I think that basically means like these are like the three kind of like main reasons. So you have access to Everbloom Life, Frozen Death, and then Coronet Peak are kind of like the three reasons to play Jarl at this point. Also, in terms of like shield choice, so we're not actually playing Stalagmite at all. We're playing Rampart or the Rand's Head. And I think the idea for this is you get to play it into Gravy and some of the other matchups, and you're basically just trying to just get a ton of non-card related like value blocking. Basically, you can use it in addition to quick dodge if you need to. Like, there's a lot of actually pretty decent use cases for this card, especially against decks that like want to close the chain pretty often. Gravy being one of those. So that's kind of, I think, the idea here. Yeah, but with that, let's go ahead and give it a shot. Again, this is probably going to be a longer video, so if you are not into fatigue piles, I don't blame you. Maybe this is not the video for you, but yeah, we'll probably play some more like normal Jarl on the channel eventually, but I think this deck list is really interesting. It kind of like preys on people not expecting fatigue, and I think that a lot of like the kind of like meta decks are not necessarily trying to beat fatigue because it's like not historically been a great strategy, right? At least recently. But yeah, with that, let's go ahead and try to get some games. Playing against a Dori, don't think we really need balance of justice in Dori. I think I'd probably just rather run the Coronet Peak. And I think this is going to be a full... This might actually just be the full 68 matchup. Like, we probably just want the Mice Touches for blocking. And yeah, I think we're going to just run it like this, see how it goes. I think I'm also going to bring in Sludge just for the extra card advantage, because I think Dori tends to be a bit more grindy. But yeah, I feel like in most matchups, like you're probably trying to run at least 65 cards, if not more. Okay, how do we want to start off here? So we can Arsenal the That All You Got and just play out the Frozen for the Glacial Footsteps here. They'll eat a bunch of cards. They are in Great Axe, which means that they're also trying to go for a fatigue angle. There is also argument to just sledging for 6. I think that's semi-reasonable. Maybe that's better than sending the Glacial, because we're only getting +2 damage for not a ton of tangible benefit. Like, we have the option to spend a card to send 8 or spend 0 cards to send 6, so maybe sending the 6 is actually better. I think we're going to just try to swing Sludge basically every turn if we can help it. This is going to be a very interactive matchup, I can already tell. I normally don't like playing fatigue decks all that much, especially for like recording. It's just kind of like a pain to record. Also, like, even just to like play in paper, if you're playing a slower deck, you generally have the downside of having to remind your opponent to like, you know, kind of play on time and like, you know, not like be conscious of the clock, whereas you're always conscious of the clock. So what do I want to do here? I think I'm just double blocking here. I mean, I don't think it really matters. I guess we could just like give up a Mice Touch for 2 block. I think that's fine. I don't even think we need to really use the Ally Got it unless we need to. I think here I'm just gonna like double pitch the Sledge again and then play Sigil. I think this makes sense. But yeah, I imagine this is going to be a swing weapon back and forth matchup. Kind of surprised they didn't put me on first, or they didn't put me on second so that we would have to block. But I think, given that they're presenting 60, it's pretty likely that we're going to fatigue them first anyways. Right, so I think for this matchup, we do want to try to avoid the double Decimator swing, in which case we should probably... So can we actually play out Everbloom on anything relevant yet? I guess we can like put it in the yard, which is reasonable. I think the play might just be to double block with the CNC, because we don't want this to hit, and then we're just going to hold back reacts, I think makes sense. So they're going to have one of these, they come in for 5, and I'm imagining they're going to have a pump here. I think if we can just avoid the second Decimator swing, we'll be in an okay spot. So yeah, this is to be expected. So I think we're going to start by using That All You Got on it, because we ideally would like to Arsenal the Fate. And I imagine they're probably trying to keep a blue in hand. Okay, but if they're going to pump for 4 here, then I'd rather use the Fate. So I think we cover this perfectly, and then we can just get to use Tunic plus blue. Cranial Crush can go to the bottom. I don't think it really matters. It's just a random blue. So now they don't get to swing Great Axe again, and we know that this is probably a blue. And yeah, we're doing a good job just sending Sludge every single turn. Let's see if I can showcase one of the matchups where we're not just like doing this every turn. I mean, like that. This is kind of like all the deck does. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe it gets a little bit tiring after a while. All right, Decimator coming in again. Could just give the Midas Touch again. I think that's probably fine. I mean, ultimately what we want to do is just send Sludge again next turn. So maybe actually what we want to do is just like Everbloom to put our other Everbloom back, and then just like pitch 4. I think that's also pretty reasonable just to send Sludge. If they want to try to crack Bolters here, I think I'm fine getting that out of the way. Oh, they provoke. Okay, that's also fine. So this is added as a defending card, which is kind of interesting. I guess in that case, let's go ahead and give them the Midas Touch, and then we'll go ahead and pitch the Sync plus Everbloom, and then just Sigil. I think this still works out fine for us. Maybe this is even like better than what they ended up doing, or this kind of like actually worked out for us because we kind of like the provoke kind of would have done what maybe a better play was anyways. And it's basically also like -1 card in decks that we don't have to worry about anymore. So I'd say I'm pretty fine with this. I think the only way they have a chance this game is if they have like triple Remembrance or something weird like that, but even then, I'm not convinced that that would win it. Yep, so this is great. We get 2 cards out of them every turn. Oh, we also get the Fiddler's Green, which is kind of interesting. So this will reduce it, round it up. So this will actually not reduce it at all, right? That's kind of cool. If I'm understanding that correctly. So now we just can sync. And then we just gain 3 life here, which is fantastic. I'll go ahead and do the same thing we did last turn. Yeah, the content value of decks like this is very interesting. I don't know. I feel like these maybe appeal to like people who like watching pack openings and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe that's the demographic I'm targeting here. They have let the Sludge resolve. Oh, they do have the Steelblade Shunt. All right, maybe we are getting hard countered here. Seems pretty good. All right, so just coming with Great Axe again, I think that's fine. I kind of don't want to block with the Oakenold, but I'm also kind of fine doing so. Like, we can always Remembrance it back, and I don't necessarily know if we need this as a win con. I feel like Sledge at this point is just our win con. So maybe we're just trying to fate this. I think that's reasonable. Maybe a little cavalier with our reactions here, but I don't think it matters all that much. We're definitely still winning on deck and life, which is nice. I'm assuming they're at least running like 1 or 2 remembrances. I think that's pretty normal for Dori. All right, swinging in with the Great Axe. They do have Tunic if they want to try to swing again, so we should try to stop this. Maybe this is a good excuse to try to use their That All You Got. In which case, we should probably just block with like CLF and then That All You Got from Arsenal. I think this seems fine. Now we can just pull Tunic and then Arsenal Shelter, which also makes sense. So I'd say all in all, we're in pretty decent shape. I think the Fiddler's Greens are actually kind of insane in this matchup, right? Just because like we get to effectively negate the the effective Decimator, and then also still get to basically block 4. Seems pretty good. I guess it does mean that we have to like react on top of it though, which is a bit awkward. But we definitely have a pretty significant lead here. That seems like they maybe have like another shunt here. It's also a-okay. So we're going to be taking a little bit of chip from these shunts, but I don't think that's the end of the world. We do have a Righteous Cleansing we can play. I almost wonder if that's maybe a good excuse to just take the damage here. Because they might actually not be able to like swing again off the Refraction Bolters. Because I feel like Righteous Cleansing is actually like pretty good on fatigue value. Like maybe even better than just like sending Sludge again. I think I'm just supposed to pass here. Let's try sending the Righteous Cleansing. It might not be correct. Like maybe we're supposed to just block instead there. But I think this is probably fine. Demands 2 cards and also gets in for 4. Or I mean, demands 2 cards or maybe a card plus D-React or something. But it also preserves the fatigue value, which is important. I feel like we're ahead on life, so preserving cards in deck is pretty reasonable. So yeah, pretty happy with this. Ooh, we do have an Oakenold if we want it. That's quite nice. So I think it makes sense here to just block with the Imposing Visage and just fire it off. I mean, Oakenold is definitely like higher value than Sledge, I feel. So I think this makes sense. They did pitch another Provoke. Is that the second one or is that the okay, so that would be the second one. Try to keep track of those Provokes, but I don't think they're super impactful. But might as well just resolve this Oakenold. I guess this is like maybe the 4th reason to play Jarl, is just you get access to Oakenold, which is busted. It's pretty good like late game win con, also can be pretty decent in the early game. Alright, we get in for 6, and we also give 2 random discards. Alright, another instance where Fiddler's Green seems pretty good. So we can actually do E-Strike into Sludge next turn, which is great. So I think that's what we're going to go for. I think there's not a super compelling reason to use D-React here, just because they don't have the resources to like crack bolters. Yep, so we'll just keep doing our thing. Might be the first real card we've actually... Oh no, we played the Oakenold in the Righteous Cleansing, I guess. Okay, maybe it's not just swing Sludge every turn. Maybe there's a little bit of decision points here. Okay, seems fine. So we're gonna have 11 value turn cycle. We're still at higher life total. Seems pretty good. God, Tunic Sludge is just so good, especially in terms of like fatigue game. Another interesting thing about this list, so we're actually running a lot of just like the big blue Guardian attacks. I think that's almost exclusively for Victor, is my guess. I guess also like Prism, right? Makes popping a little bit easier, but like I feel like that actually probably improves those matchups quite a bit. All right, coming with the Decimator one more time. I think for this Decimator, we're just supposed to say no blocks and just E-Strike Sludge again, right? I feel like that's a pretty good use of time. Yeah, if they're just sending 4 every turn and we're sending like 11, I feel like that favors us. So let's go ahead and E-Strike. We'll put... I mean, I don't think it really matters here. Yeah, but I think that's what the big blue attacks are for, if I had to guess. Again, I'm still waiting for the Jason Rolfe deck tech. Maybe he's got that coming out at some point, but I think that's probably the idea. Because Victor, historically for Jarl, is kind of a difficult matchup. Especially with like Visit the Goldmine Estates, all the Clash cards can be a little bit rough. So if you can add a little bit of inconsistency to their Clash, I think that is overall pretty good for you. All right, we found our Remembrance. The question, I guess, is do we want to play it? We can buy back like 2 Okens and the Righteous. I don't think that's terrible. I mean, we're still just swinging in Sledge here. I guess we'll like IP with the Fiddler's Green. I think that's fine. I feel like that's like a pretty reasonable use of time. We could also like buy back the Everbloom if we're worried about that, but I think we have multiple Everblooms, so I don't think we need to be that worried. All right, let's get back our Okins and our Righteous, and I think that's probably good. Decent Remembrance there. This hand's quite nice because we can block with the Fiddler's Green and then potentially Shelter from Arsenal and then E-Strike. The E-Strikes have been actually really nice this game. All right, so they get to Iron Song Response. That's also fine. I feel like we just are supposed to let this hit, right? Gain a nice little 3 life there. I didn't want to Shelter there in case they like wanted to swing again or something, because it doesn't really help us like block out the bolters on hit. So go ahead and keep E-striking. And we're definitely winning on deck size and also on life, which is quite nice. Right. And we'll go ahead and sludge it up as well. Wonder how many times we swung sludge this game. Maybe someone in the comments can keep track. I think it's been every turn, basically, right? So 14 times by now. I guess here can actually play out a Crumble if we really want to, but I don't even think that's necessary. I guess let's just go ahead and like double block this. We're up so much on fatigue that I don't think we actually care. Again, they could still like play like triple remembrance or something crazy, but I kind of doubt it. Looks like at most we're having to worry about like 2 more Steel Blade Shunts and maybe some just random 3 blocks in the deck. Like we haven't actually seen anything that's like really good to remembrance back. We do still have to be a little bit careful about Provoke, so I will try to keep track of that. But we did see one pitched earlier. I don't even think Provoke is necessarily that good. But yeah, I say we're at a pretty good advantage just because of how good Sludge is compared to Great Axe. I think this card's like okay, but if you think about it, it's like a 3 for 5, whereas this is a 4 for 6, which is technically better. Right, go ahead and pass. This could be a pretty decent Righteous Cleansing hand. All right, looks like they're going to swing in with the Great Axe. I'm kind of curious why they played out the Iron Song response. Maybe it signals that they want to try to swing again, in which case I kind of feel like we should just block with the Gauntlets and then maybe just Righteous Cleansing again. Righteous Cleansing is like pretty threatening. I guess we also don't like have to play the Righteous Cleansing if we don't want to. But it's probably fine. Oh, I did forget that the Great Axe technically doesn't apply to the Gauntlets, so this doesn't fully cover. That's fine. They want to hit. I think we're still far enough ahead where it doesn't really matter a ton. I guess they get +3 on the thing, so I guess that actually could have mattered. That's, I guess, on me. So we can technically defend with the Righteous Cleansing now if we really want to, but I'd almost rather just like convert this into fatigue value. I feel like we're still at like a decent life buffer. We still have 1 sigil left, and I guess all our Fiddler screens are gone, but like I feel like we're still decently far ahead. And this will demand another 2 cards from hand. Say overall this is fine. Do need to be a little bit careful, maybe a little bit more careful with our life total at this point. All right, find the pulse, which is kind of cool as well. Let's block with the CLF here and then just pulse it, I think. Could also just like double block here and then Arsenal Pulse and then send Sledge off Tunic. I think that's also quite reasonable. Yeah, let's go ahead and just get our value here. Again, I don't think we're losing the fatigue game at this point. Unless they pull out like 2 remembrances out of nowhere. We've got the bolters out of the way, so we don't really have to worry about that as well. You can just go ahead and keep sludging. And then we're just sitting on pulse in case we need to worry about anything. We do actually have to be a little bit careful about what's that card called? There's a card that like flips a D-React from Arsenal up, like face up, and then if it is like destroyed and you get +1. I guess that's the one card we might need to be a little concerned about. I forget what that card is called. Kind of goes to show how little I know about warrior cards. So I think that's an action though, so they have to like play it now if they wanted to. Let's go ahead and I guess just double block here. I think that's fine. If they want to like provoke us, I think I'm also okay with that. Not the end of the world.
Emboldened Blade.
Emboldened Blade. That's
an action.
Yeah, it is an action. I knew that part. I just didn't know what the card was called.
I didn't know what it is either.
All right, so the only thing we're really worried about is like provoke here. All right, route we absolutely do not care about. So now we can just pulse it and then still swing footsteps plus here. I guess we would also give him a frostbite, but don't think that matters very much. All right, we'll go ahead and keep on sledging. Unfortunately, we're not getting any life off our find all, but I think that's not super relevant this matchup. All right, we're definitely winning on deck size. Now I think we just need to prioritize our life total above everything else because we're so far ahead on deck. So let's go ahead and just double lock here. They provoke. We don't care. I guess we care like a little bit, but not by much. I don't even think I'm supposed to play out the CNC here because it's just 6 damage either way. They have Crown, so they can basically do whatever they want. Would maybe like to try to find an excuse to use a quick dodge, but I imagine these are just going to be 2 blocked this game. All right, we put him down to 5. Excellent. All right, there's the Iron Song. Plus spoils. So maybe what they're trying to do is they're trying to set up like some weird like stack of like Iron Song plus some go again. Maybe that's the strat. I think we're honestly maybe even fine just like giving up the Courtnip peak here if we want to. And then maybe we just like pitch the crumble to this and then Tunic to use the macho. I think that makes sense. I just kind of want to stop them from being able to swing twice here. And again, I think we just need to prioritize our life total above everything else at this point because we're already ahead on both deck and life. Let's go ahead and pitch the crumble for later. I guess they will get to swing again. Maybe I should have given the gauntlets there too. This is me forgetting how this stupid card works. I guess it's still fine. We can just flexors again. Minor punts, but not the end of the world. So flexors. I guess we can also just like D-React if we want to. We also like save the D-React if we want and go to 10. I think that's semi-reasonable. But I guess let's go ahead and play around the Emboldened Blade in case they have it. I don't think we saw it yet. That's fine. We'll play around something that may or may not exist. And we'll just keep using the power of Tunic to send Sludge. Again, as long as we preserve our life total here, I find it hard to believe that we're going to lose the deck war at this point. So I think, honestly, maybe even just, like, blocking, like, 9 here or arsenaling the shelter is probably correct. Yeah, I don't think we actually need to swing Sledge this turn to win. How worried are we about the Everbloom? So we've seen one, so we have one Everbloom left. I think it's fine to not play it here. I'll just go ahead and cover the 7. Alright, go ahead and Arsenal, and we'll not swing Sledge this turn, but we'll probably swing it next turn. So it basically depends on like how many ways they have to go tall, which I think we've seen all the Sharpened Steels at this point, right? Seen all the Sharpened Steels, we've seen all the Iron Song responses. We still have Hit and Run, I guess, red to worry about, and then maybe what else? I guess like Steelblade Supremacy. I think we saw that maybe in pitch. Warrior's Valor, I guess, is another way to go tall. Yeah, but other than that, we're pretty in the clear, I think. I guess maybe we still have like 1 or 2 more shunts to worry about, but even then, I don't think that matters all that much. Alright, so I do want to be a little bit careful about provoke here. If that's what they are representing. They are going to have to go again off this, which is definitely a bit awkward. So I think what I'm going to try to go for here is just double react. Alright, so they pitched a provoke. I think they just pitched another provoke as well, right? So I think we're safe from provoke here. I think we just need to worry about the Warrior's Valor. In which case, I think the play is to maybe just block with one of these Oakenolds. And then we'll pitch away to Oakenold for later, and then just like double D-React, or maybe even single D-React, depending on what we have here. I might try to go for like a reprise trigger also. I think that's fine. But let's go ahead and Fate first, I guess, just so we get the added information. We'll bottom the Oakenold for now, I think. Again, I don't even think we need the Oakenolds to win at this point. We're just going to try to win through Sludge. It was cool that we got to at least Natty and Oakenold. That always feels nice. I think we're sitting pretty good. We're still sitting on D-React and Arsenal, so as long as they don't have Emboldened Blade, we should be fine. And we have not seen a single copy of that yet. So this is our last Everbloom, which means we probably should try to play this out if we can help it. But yeah, here we're just going to try to deny the Warrior's Valor trigger. So I imagine that they're still keeping an extra blue in hand, which means that whatever they have has to come from Arsenal. In which case, we'll just go ahead and block 3 here, and then Shelter from Arsenal, use Tunic on and Crumble for Sledge, and then Everbloom as well. I think that makes sense. We're just going to try to deny the double Decimator swing, I think, at this point. We are giving them like 3 cards a turn, which feels bad, but they are using functionally +1 card. And we also got a bunch of armor out of them that last turn, so I think we're kind of fine with that. So let's go ahead and buy back our other Everbloom, keep the infinite loop going, and then send in the Sledge. And we've thoroughly got the deck dwindled down at this point. It's just a matter of what other threats they have remaining. I don't even think we need the Righteous Cleansing at this point. We're maybe just going to block out a bit. Actually, probably just going to Arsenal the Righteous Cleansing over anything, right? Just block 5 here. Hold on to Sigil, Arsenal the Cleansing. I guess there's no really compelling reason to like try to hold 2 cards to send Sledge. I think I'd rather just preserve the life total a little bit here. Just because we're so far ahead, I think that we're more likely to lose to us dying than we are to lose to fatigue. And go ahead and Arsenal the Righteous and pass back. We definitely made a couple like minor misplays this game, but it's mostly me forgetting about like Decimator. Alright, we have a blue Warrior's Valor. So I think we still have a Provoke we want to play. In which case, we still kind of need to block, which is unfortunate. I guess the Provokes are like actually kind of a little bit annoying, because they can still like rip the card out of our hand here. So I'm putting this card as Provoke. I think that we still have 2 left in the deck functionally. So if we overblock, then they Provoke. If we underblock, then they just like swing in Sludge Decimator again. But I guess we don't even care about them swinging again, right? Because they don't have Go again on this, or they will have Go again off the Warrior's Valor, right? So I think in this case we actually are just saying we don't care, and if you want to swing Decimator one more time, we'll just block it and send Sledge at you. I think this is actually fine. All right, so it's actually a Glint instead of the Provoke, but I feel like this card might be Provoked then. Like I feel like they have access to at least 1 Provoke, right? We've only seen 2 of them. So maybe they're just opting not to play and instead pitch it here, which is also, I think, fine. Yeah, they might just be going for pitch here. I'm putting this card as like Provoke or some random blue. Because if they don't have a Provoke here, it's almost guaranteed that they have one at least in the next hand. And then we'll go ahead and just block with the Imposing Visage, which will get a full 3 value. So they did have a Provoke there. So I think it was correct to not like overblock there. And now we get to send Sledge in. We block 3 because the Decimator doesn't trigger multiple times per turn. It's just once. And now we can just pitch the Righteous plus the Imposing and swing in for lethal. Or threatening lethal every turn for the remainder of the game. And yeah, I think at this point the writing is probably on the wall. I didn't even know if they had triple Remembrance left in the deck that they would probably be able to do anything here. So I think here we're probably just going to try to get them to provoke. I guess they can provoke off Tunic, right? Yeah, so I guess we'll say no blocks and just like double D-Reactor or whatever. Seems fine. I don't even know if we need a double D-React. We can also just like single D-React if we wanted to. Oh, they're going to go for the Overpower instead. Okay, that's also fine. So still not threatening lethal. Then we get to go ahead and just block for 6. Seems good. And now we can actually just like Righteous Cleansing off Tunic, which is nice. Might as well, right? Tegan's a big fan of Righteous Cleansing. I think when Victor first came out, Tegan was playing Righteous Cleansing in that deck, and it was kind of a lot of fun.
I hit one of our friends with the crush effect and hit 3 stink blows.
Yeah, I always remember that armory. That was a lot of fun. All right, so we beat a Dori, not to be totally unexpected. I think that the Sledge fatigue plan is just in general a lot better than the Great X plan. And our opponent really wasn't able to use like great use of the provokes and stuff. And we still had like a ton of deck left to work with. So I think overall felt pretty compelling from at least the fatigue mirror side. Let's see if we can get another one. All right, it's playing against Oscilio. All right, let's see how this goes. So I think, I don't know how much AB we necessarily want to do Oscilio, but I feel like AB3 generally has felt correct. I feel like maybe even balance is pretty good. Let's go for the Titan's Fist plus Rampart. And this matchup can probably be a little bit tougher. Not maybe even AB4 is correct. Let's try it with AB3 though and see how it goes. And then I guess the question is like, do we want to run any of these extra cards? I feel like the Righteouses maybe are just main deck. I feel like maybe the Midas Touches and the Ally Guts are excessive. Let's try like this. I'm curious to see how this goes. This could also be me boarding wrong. That's fully possible. But I have fatigued Oscilios even just on a normal Jarl, so excited to see how this goes. All right, we're starting with the Eclectic Magnetism. So I think here we're just going to try to hold on to the CNC as our last remaining card and maybe just fate this. Just try to present a little bit of disruption towards Oscilio's game plan and get a little opt value as well. Shelter seems like an okay draw. Not terrible. All right, no spells to finish it off. So unfortunately we can't play like CLF here, but I think what we're going to do is just like pitch the Macho and maybe like IP with the CLF. I think that seems reasonable. And then we'll go ahead and send in the CNC, which, because we activated Fire Device, is now a lot better because it means that Oscilio can't cycle and also play out instants from Arsenal. At least as easily. Like, you can still play out like Null Shock and probably be kind of like an equivalent state, but seems pretty likely the CNC might be hitting. All right, so we had a current funnel. Not a super high value target, I'd say, but not bad nonetheless. I think here it's a little bit risky to Arsenal to D-React, but I think it's probably fine. I mean, it's pretty likely that Oscilio will attack you in a given game, so I don't think it's super high priority. We do find our Crumble, though, which I think we actually are going to try to hit the Greaves with. One of kind of like the things that Jason was saying in the Discord about this deck is just like there's a lot of like good value in terms of like blowing up specific equipment in the format right now. I think that's largely true. Like Flick Knives, Lightning Greaves, like Gravy, Compass, obviously are all quite good. I think here we're just going to go ahead and D-React this, assuming that it's maybe like a CLV or something, and we are correct. So we'll go ahead and just play out the Shelter there. I think the breakpoints on that make the most sense. And then we'll just hold back some blues for AB if we need it. All right, so we do have to be a little bit careful about CLV here. I think this might actually be a compelling turn to just go ahead and use the Rampart here. I think I'm actually going to use the Everbloom so that we can maybe like arsenal the CL. Oh, whoops, sorry. Oh, that was my bad. You're fine. That was me forgetting that Rampart, you don't activate it in the same way. Hold on. Yeah, so that was me forgetting that you can't just like activate Rampart in the same way that a Quick Dodge Fluxer is worded. So yeah, they are going to get the card draw here, which we probably could have prevented there quite easily. But that's on me. For some reason, I get these cards like confused in my head, Quick Dodge and Rampart. But yeah, you have to add Rampart to the chain first before you pay into it. So we do give him extra card draw here, but overall, probably not even looking that bad. I guess we probably still would have had to like block out the seal up here anyways, so maybe this actually works out better. All right, so I'm curious to see if there's an extra action point here. All right, we do have the Sigil, so maybe we're bouncing the CLV to Arsenal for another turn. Seems pretty good. Fortunately, there's no arcane damage here, which I'm very happy about. So this is I think, perfect turn to just play out the Crumble. We know they have probably a CLV either in Arsenal or in hand, both of which seem pretty good. And we're currently not doing too bad, at least on fatigue value. Got our opponent down to 47. We still got 54 cards in deck, and they have a lot of life to still fight through. We'll go ahead and try to knock out the Greaves, and then Seal Off is a pretty good arsenal if we get a little bit of breathing room on a future turn. I can't complain too much about the Doubler Fiddler's Green, although it is a little bit awkward given they have CLV in Arsenal. So I'm kind of hoping their hand is a little bit more clunky than good here. All right, cycling the Null Shock I think is also quite good for me. Definitely one of the ways they can kind of go a bit taller. So this is kind of interesting. I feel like we're... The block I see is like maybe double Fiddler's Green plus like the Balance of Justice. Because we do want to like prioritize getting these out of hand. And then we can also like Sandbag of Blue, maybe play out the CLF, CLF on our turn. CLF, CLV, same thing. Let's go ahead and just give them the 4 block and maybe gain 6 off the back of this. So they play out CLV from Arsenal, and then maybe have like an arcane spell to follow up. I think that's the line at least I see. If they draw a card, not the end of the world. So they do have the instant speed one, which is quite nice, which means they can maybe do some stuff afterwards. So I think here we're just going to prioritize staying as healthy as possible, pay 3, and we still are holding on to an ice card in case we need to play out the CLF, which we want to do. I think our game plan is here is just slow them down as much as possible. And we absolutely don't want to be attacking into them when they have Flash of Brilliance plus Sigil Brilliance up. All right, so we'll go back up to a nice healthy 42 here. Pretty good. And we will get dominated on our next Guardian attack. Or no, this is just next attack in general, I forgot. So I guess there's no real reason to not Heart of Ice. I guess it does make it a little bit more annoying. They will have to fight through a CLF on their Sigil Brilliance turn, which also feels quite bad. Alright, go ahead and bottom the Crumble. And this CLF is probably going to save us quite a decent bit of life here, especially given that they're going to have basically a power turn. Fortunate thing for us is they weren't able to keep the previous CLV around, although that being said, they are going to play out another one. I feel like this one's not going to be nearly as good, though. Maybe this is actually a matchup where we want to board out Heart of Ice, but I don't actually know if that's correct. All right, lots of instants here. So maybe they're going to like pitch a blue plus arcane spell is at least the line I see. Could be pretty decent. Yep, so Volzar will cost 1, then they're going to Mind Warp. Makes sense to me. I guess we'll play out Sigil first. They are going to be amping... So I guess the amp doesn't actually matter all that much here. Let's go ahead and just pitch, I guess, our Heart. So we will trigger CLV and get an Arsenal. But aside from that, I think we're still in a fine spot. And I guess the question here is whether or not we want to like actually arsenal this righteous cleansing. I feel like the answer to that is probably no. Could just like pitch it to Heart of Ice and then just like swinging the Titan's Fist with the Macho. I think it's probably better than arsenaling it, given that like we maybe have higher value arsenal targets that we want to try to keep, assuming that they have like maybe an off turn or something, which Oscilio is more likely to have than not. Alright, seems like a good hand for blocking, although not necessarily for blocking arcane damage. Although the shelters do kind of help with that, so maybe it's not that bad. But definitely would like to see maybe like a Gone in a Flash type turn as opposed to just a big arcane spell or something like that. Alright, so here comes the Blast to Oblivion. We do have to kind of care about the CLV triggering, so I think we're probably just going to go ahead and try to use like Fate here. Alright, go ahead and opt. CNC is actually not a terrible card to have, so I think, well, okay, so we do have Balance active. So maybe in the case that we are able to activate Balance, maybe we'd actually rather draw a blue than the CNC, so maybe it's actually better to bottom there. His hand is lacking a blue in terms of paying for arcane damage. The nice thing is also like we don't care about their sigils at all. The sigils are functionally just like gain 3, but we don't really care very much about their life total, just our life total. Alright, so they're replaying out the CLV and then sending in the current funnel. It's actually kind of a funny play we can do where we can like double shelter here. Which would prevent 2, prevent 2, prevent 2. Is that right though? Like we're losing effectively 2 block value, but we're losing 2 block value like anyways, so maybe that's actually correct. It's kind of weird, but I think this is the right move. We just double use the ability here, so we'll let the first ability resolve, and then we'll let the second one resolve in case they want to do anything tricksy in between. Bit of a weird turn, but I think this also helps prevent a little bit of the arcane damage coming, if there is any coming. So we have 2 instances of 2 and 2 floating, which is functionally the same as if we like blocked 4 on that. But the benefit is we do get to get around an effect like etchings, which is quite nice. So I think we'll just pass on this. Pay 0, they get a trigger here. And it's interesting they're holding back their Bulzer, which makes me think that they have like another spell in hand. Maybe trying to go for the Mind Warp instead, which I think we're just going to use the Sigil in response of. So it's kind of interesting, like we're actually doing quite well even without like Oasis in the deck, which is kind of surprising to me, at least given some of the things I've tried with Jarl. Alright, so CLV's down, opponent has a 5-card hand. We still haven't seen any Gone in a Flashes too, which is kind of weird. Wonder if there's also maybe like an opportunity to use Balance earlier. That's also very possible. I could also see argument for like AV4 in scenarios like this, maybe. So what do we want to do here? Can't Oakenold, obviously. Maybe we're just trying to like Arsenal the Oakenold. How many crumbles have we seen? We've seen 1 crumble go. Maybe CLF is like the better Arsenal. So I think here we're actually just going to pitch the Thunderquake. I think that makes the most sense. And I think we're just going to Heart of Ice, Arsenal the CLF, which I think is like the most disruptive thing we can do with our hand. Like Oakenold is good if it lines up, but if it's stuck in Arsenal, I think that's significantly worse than CLF being stuck in Arsenal. And we're staying at about 40, which I think is quite relevant. There's our Ice card in case we want to play that out. That's fantastic. Everbloom's also nice. So I think here we're just going to Posing. We haven't seen any blinks yet, so I feel like I'm probably overdue for a blink turn, which this is maybe signaling to me. Or just a Sigil of Conductivity. That's probably better for us. But if this is all their turn is, then maybe what we can do is just CLF plus Everbloom. That's probably like the highest value play we can make. We don't really care much about sending the Sledge here, right? So I think we'll start with the Heart of Ice, see what they do. they now have to like filter in response to this if they want to. Go ahead and Everbloom Life and buy back, I think, another Everbloom Life, right? Yep, makes sense to me. We could have also gotten the Crumble if we wanted to there. Then we'll just play out the seal off here and Arsenal Sink and pass. Basically just full on stacks at this point. Alright, so they finally found their Gone on a Flash, but might be kind of awkward at this point. I think this seems like a good hand to just like Vapor Scene. Obviously, we're not going to be able to keep our seal around for much longer. But I'd say overall is fine. Let's bottom the Glacial. I don't think it's super relevant right now. Alright, they're going to bounce with Conductivity. Makes sense. So maybe they're just going to go for like a mini Gone on a Flash turn. Which makes sense to me through a channel like Pritchett. Still can't go super wide unless they have like another blue in hand at this point and like an instant arsenal. So this could still be kind of clunky. All right, coming in for 4. Let's go ahead. I guess we might as well just AB3. I don't think Fiddler's Green matters all that much, especially if they're not sending a ton of arcane damage. And we'll go ahead and just swing in the fist for a little bit of extra value. We're not super worried about Flash of Brilliance here plus Sigil because to play the Sigil, they have to obviously pitch a card. So I'd say this is actually a pretty safe turn to just attack in. All right, we're doing pretty good this game. I would expect that our life total at some point is going to drop. But when that happens, I'm not entirely sure. All right, go ahead and block with the Eisen. I feel like now we have to see a blink at this point, right? Okay, cool. I don't know if Oscilio decks are like cutting down on blink. I doubt it, right? Like this card is just like kind of insane in Oscilio. At least when I was playing him, it was kind of insane. So this seems like a good candidate for maybe just Sink Blow. They can obviously bounce into response if they want to, but that's fine. So go ahead and Sink. We'll get rid of, I guess, Eisen here. Don't think it matters a ton. Fortunately, I haven't really found a ton of ways to like break equipment. I guess we did like pitch 2 Frozens to our CLFs, which I think is maybe higher value in the long run. So we don't have a CLV out. How many CLVs have we used? We used 2 CLVs. I feel like I'm maybe content just blocking out a bit here. We can maybe even like Rampart here if we really want to. Assuming that there's maybe like another arcane effect coming. And then maybe just like Arsenal E-Strike. I think that seems reasonable. Or at least it seems pretty likely that we're going to be able to use this 2 floating if they do anything else. Alright, Null Shock is A-okay here. So we are going to take 7, which is a lot. But we're still at 36, so I'm not super scared. And now we can just Arsenal E-Strike and pass back. E-Strike's not a terrible arsenal, I don't think. It's not super disruptive, obviously, but otherwise, I think it's fine. So what threats do we have left in the deck? We have Sigil of Brilliance. We saw Sigil of Aether Pitch. We probably have 1 or 2 Somersaults plus Eclectics left. Some other good stuff. I guess there's maybe an argument to not even attacking into Oscilio as frequently as we were doing. Maybe just so that we're gaining a bit of value off Heart. Like maybe that's a better win condition than swinging Titan's Fist. I think we've been, for the most part, blocking everything they've been doing. I don't think there's been a ton of opportunity to like give additional blocks on attacks at least. All right, coming in with the Gone in the Flash. So this might end up being the Gone in the Flash turn. In which case we might actually want to just use our Rampart here. I think that makes sense. Let's go ahead and just like convert this to a block. Go ahead and pay 1 here. I fully expect this is maybe the Greaves turn. But I feel like this is probably the most efficient thing we can do with Rampart, because if they ever close the chain, then this obviously gets a ton of value. I feel like in general, Oscilio doesn't typically close the chain a lot if they don't want to. Like, it's mostly just for like arcane effects at this point, right? I think that's like the only real reason they close the chain, but maybe this is still fine because we're still functionally getting 3 value if they send arcane damage. All right, seems like they're not even going to go for that. Makes sense. So I think here we're just going to go ahead and E-Strike, do buff. If they get us with the Flash of Brilliance, Sigil Brilliance thing, I don't even think we necessarily care about that. We still are sitting on Sigil in Arsenal. Could get a little bit scary, but I think overall it's probably fine. I feel like Sigil is also a lot better when like you play it out the turn before as opposed to like playing it now, because then it's just kind of card neutral for the most part. All right, so perfect excuse to go ahead and AB1 the Sigil Vather. I guess we'll just pitch Eisen. Don't think it matters a ton. This is feeling pretty good on AB3. I honestly don't even know if you need the AB4. Like the balance maybe feels like it's higher utility than the fourth AB. At least that's what it felt like. I feel like the fourth AB is maybe just for like Verdant's Kano, but I feel like those matchups, depending on how much tech they bring, are kind of like cursed anyways. All right, so there's Sigil Brilliance, which I think they opted to not go for last turn, which makes sense. We've not also seen a ton of the Comet Storm Shocks either, so I fully expect there to be at least like 1 or 2 more of those. Right, going for the Volzar. I think they're just doing the Comet Storm side of it. Makes sense to me. So I think we're not even supposed to attack it in the next turn. I guess we should have like maybe thought about holding on to like Ice Card plus this. Because now it's like a little bit more awkward. But yeah, I think we're just not attacking this turn, especially with the face-up Sigil Brilliance. We could also just attack with the CNC. They'd still have to give us a card here. And they have to give us like 3 block plus all armor. But then we're giving them a card functionally off the Flash of Brilliance, which is maybe awkward. I don't know, it feels weird. Why does this attack feel bad? Maybe because it is bad. Maybe we're just supposed to Sigil anyways. I feel like arsenaling this is maybe just better. I kind of feel like attacking into them is like maybe a trap on this hand. Especially with the last Sigil Brilliance out of the way at this point. I think we're going to try to look to use our balance this turn if we can help it. Because we got 1 card draw here. I'm imagining that maybe they have the last CLV at this point. Strong possibility of that. What other threats? We have etchings to worry about as well. So they could definitely have a pretty decent Gone and Flash turn lined up here. The only problem with their Gone and Flash turn is they don't have Tunic up at this point. So that's maybe the only real detriment this turn is they still have to like pitch a card here, but they could still make that work with like Comet Storm Shock, which we've only seen the 1 of at this point. All right. They're targeting their self with the shock. Oh, to pop the Sigil of Conductivity. That makes sense. Yep, that's a pretty sweet trick. In this case, what do we want to do? I think we'll just go for the Sink Blow here. So maybe they're not even going to go for the Greaves turn yet. Let's go ahead and bottom Imposing, I guess. I don't think it really matters because we're probably just drawing into a blue 3 block anyways. But I guess we still have the, we still have like 1 Fiddler's Green that we pitched earlier on. I guess we're probably not even at that point yet. But this still seems fine to me. All right, another Gone in a Flash. So we still have a couple blinks also to worry about. We have two blinks, I think, they still haven't used. Where's their blinks? Am I missing it? Oh, there's 1 blink. So yeah, they still have 2 blinks left to worry about. So in that case, let's go ahead and just pitch the Glacial and go ahead and just take 1. If they want to get a CLV trigger, I think I'm fine with that. Especially because it would turn on our balance and there's the other blink. That makes sense. So I'm expecting maybe even one more blink this turn. Or they still have one in the deck at least. But we're going to make them have a really good turn here. Alright, so there's their etchings, so they're going to get to buy back Sigil Brilliance. I think we were just going to AB3, let them get another Sigil Brilliance played out, and we're still not going to attack into them next turn. I think our play is just going to be to Everbloom Life, gain a little bit of padding. Oh, they arsenal. Wait, hold on. They arsenaled that. I guess that's still the same play, right? We should just do the Everbloom loop as opposed to sending CNC because the CNC doesn't matter. So yeah, I'd say this is fine. Still just on our blockout plan here. They're going to play Gauntlet Flash basically every turn for the rest of the game, but other than that, I don't think we care all that much. They still have, like, how many Gauntlet Flash do they still have left in the deck? They still have 2 Gauntlet Flash left in the deck, so the chances of them bricking on Gauntlet Flash are also quite high. Gauntlet Flash notably does not synergize with Gauntlet Flash, which is kind of cool. And yeah, we basically have no real incentive to attack into them at this point. Let's preserve our life total. There's Last Blink. So I feel like most of the good threats are kind of out of the way. I think we still have 2 red Blast to Oblivions also in the deck, so I feel like their deck at this point is like pretty high on attacks, it seems. This might actually be a decent excuse to just go ahead and give the Rampart as well, and just float 2. If they end up sending this one more time, then we, I guess, missed a little bit of damage, but that's fine. I feel like more likely than not, it's just like pass or something. So you might as well just get that little point of value there. They're still sitting on a Sigil Brilliance, notably. And them not playing the last card in hand maybe makes me think that that's another Gauntlet Flash. Given that they probably have at least 1 more in the deck. Or at least 2 more in the deck, rather. So this card's Sigil Brilliance, this card's maybe Gauntlet Flash. I guess CLV also. Maybe this card is like Gauntlet Flash or something. Makes sense to me. All right, just coming in for 6. I think we'll go ahead and just AB3. Maybe try to hold on to another CNC. I think this actually might be a decent turn to just send in. I mean, even then, it's still not doing a ton. The one tricksy thing we could do is actually play out the Heart of Ice and then send CNC, which makes it awkward for them to pay for the Sigil Brilliance. I actually kind of don't mind that play. Okay, I guess they're going to play it out now. So now we actually are pretty incentivized to just attack in. I feel like their deck at this point is also like very attack heavy, so they might not be able to use all the cards even if we give them to them. So let's go for the CNC and maybe force them to block here. We could have done this at an earlier turn, but I don't know if it was actually good then. Maybe this is still not good. Like, maybe we should still just, like, not be attacking. But, like, I feel like they're mostly out of instants at this point. You know, the one card we have not seen a ton of are the electrostatic discharge. Is that the one? The, like, the +3 instant? I don't know. I feel like Oscilios are still running that, right? But regardless, we're getting 2 cards out of them here, so maybe this is still fine. And they just have a 4-card, whatever, Gauntlet Flash turn. They notably will need to pay for this Somersault as well. So what is their deck? Their deck is like Eclectics. So they're maybe just not on the discharges. Maybe that's a recent like Yuto innovation or something. I'm just assuming that like every Oscilio player is playing Yuto's list. I don't know if that still holds true, but I feel like that was largely true, at least when I was playing Oscilio. It's a pretty funny hand. If they don't end up using their Greaves here, we can blow them up, which is kind of cool. So I guess here we'll just like go ahead and give them this. I'd say definitely have the Sigil Brilliance, makes sense. And then I guess we can just give them the card draw here. I don't think it matters a ton. Might not even need to like play the Frozen to Death here. Maybe your better play is to just like pulse this and then pay into AB or something. I think we'll say no blocks and we'll just pulse. All right, so there's the etchings. Seems fine. So are we in reactions? I guess it doesn't really matter, right? We can just AB3 and then pulse this. Also totally fine. All right, so I think our opponent has like realistically one more turn in the game. They lose their CLV, they have Sigil, Brilliance, and I think their deck, so what is their deck at this point? It's like 2 Blast to Oblivion, maybe Eclectic, maybe a Somersault, definitely a Consign to Cosmos. I think that card is like an auto-include, and then like 2 Ghana Flashes, and then like maybe a Sigil of Aether. Yeah, I don't think we're too worried here. We're also seeing the Bindings pop, that's fine. Current funnel, how many current funnels have we seen? I guess there maybe is a third current funnel. I don't fully know exactly what threats are still left in the deck. All right, so I think the play here is we're just going to sink below this. How many blinks have we seen? We've seen all the blinks as well. I guess this could also be like a Greaves turn or something. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe they're going to go for Greaves here off the Tunic instead. I think that makes sense at this point in the game. We might be overdue for a pretty big arcane spell at this point, which could be scary. Maybe that's the argument for like AB4 in this matchup. Could definitely be the case. I feel like maybe we didn't actually get a ton of value out of the balance here. Maybe this would have been better off as like 4th AB because we just like didn't end up using this. I feel like maybe we just like didn't find the opportunity to, or maybe I missed it. So I could see this maybe being 4th AB instead. All right, Glyph Overlay is scary. So this is maybe their win con here. So we'll go ahead and AB3. They're going to be able to surge all these back. And then we're also going to need to pay an additional AB1 into the Sigil of Aether potentially. Yeah, last Glyph Overlay might be spooky. I think we will go ahead and just AB1 here, just in case they're going to pump another spell. It's a pretty cool interaction, though. Oh, they do have the Consign to Cosmos. Okay. So I think here we just need to keep preserving life total as much as possible and not worry about sending CNC. So how many arcane effects do they have left, realistically? They have a bunch of sigils. They have no glyph overlays, no etchings, no Comet Storm shocks. I feel like it's just like mostly attacks. Like what other arcane effects do they actually have at this point? Maybe like Sigil Aether. So I don't think we're that concerned. All right, go ahead and keep blocking. I think maybe there's an argument to just give the Rampart here. I think it's fine to give one card. All right, so they're going to bounce with sigils. Makes sense to me. So I don't actually know if they have any other sources of arcane damage left at this point. Block with the Thunderquake now. There's Sigil of Solace. Not one of the ones we necessarily care about, though. So the question here is whether or not even sending the Everbloom is better here versus sending the CNC. Maybe CNC is better, so we just keep them off the card as opposed to Everbloom. I could also see like Coronet Peak being correct in this matchup. Maybe, because we like force them off Tunic. I feel like there's maybe some Oscilio tech in this matchup that is maybe better than what I end up doing. I think CNC here seems relatively fine. I think we get the last card in Arsenal, we're happy. We don't get the last card in Arsenal, I think we're also fine with that. I feel like it's just got to be mostly attacks at this point, right? I think there's maybe like one more Somersault. Is that true? Yeah, there's probably one more Somersault. Seems like that was maybe what they were going for there. Oh, maybe we didn't pay attention to that sigil conductivity either. But that's still fine. But we still got them to functionally discard a card at this point, so not the end of the world. Oh, we have the Fiddler's Green back. So I'd say we are in pretty good shape. Let's go ahead and just block 4. I'm kind of surprised to not see any electrostatic discharge in this deck. But again, I've also not really kept up with a ton of Oscilio developments. So I think what we learned this game is that maybe the balance of justice is just like bad. I can see that being the case. So what are the threats they have left at this point? No blinks. I think we can just afford a rampart here. Like, I don't actually know if there's a way to give this go again, even left. They don't have an extra action point, so they can't even do anything there. Seems safe to just convert that into an additional block. Okay, they do have the somersault, so they can like buy it back. So then this is going to be the last hand they have. And then we still gain the 3 life off the Fiddlers, which is quite nice as well. Oh, and our Heart of Findall is now live, which is kind of nice, especially off the Sigil of Aether. I was kind of worried about that last, what's that card called? The Glyph Overlay. This card seems actually quite strong into at least like controlling decks, but we might just be like a little bit too controlling for them, or maybe a little bit more controlling than they were expecting. All right, let's go ahead and maybe just use our Rampart here. We have 1 floating, we might as well, right? Just try to block out as much as possible. I still don't think there's any arcane damage effects at this point. I don't even know if there's anything that gives go again at this rate. So what is their hand? Their hand is like a current funnel. They played the magnetism. There's like a sigil. There's maybe like a sigil of conductivity somewhere, either in arsenal or in hand. And then beyond that, I think they're basically out of damage. I guess here we can like go ahead and just like arsenal the eyes in for a future turn. I don't think it really. I mean, there's not really going to be like a future turn. I feel like at this point we basically won, at least based on the threat tracking that I've been doing. Maybe they have something that I'm not thinking of, but I kind of doubt it at this point. All right, so there's less Goner Flash. Let's go ahead and block with, I guess, the Righteous Cleansing plus Rampart, I think is fine. I will say this about this deck. If you like games of Flesh and Blood, this is a deck that gets you a lot of games of, or gets you a lot of, I guess, turns in Flesh and Blood. Maybe not necessarily fun turns, but they are turns nonetheless. Okay, let's go ahead and put it on the head. We can go ahead and pitch CLF here and then just send in like the Glacial. I think it's even better to just like play the Glacial there for 8. I think this is probably the same result regardless. I guess we get the added benefit of channeling a Mount Eisen, which is funny. All right, so you have a current funnel. I think the last card in hand is like Sigil of Conductivity, if I'm not mistaken. So go ahead and Rampart here. Stay nice and healthy. All right, go ahead and pass back. All right, so there's Sigil of Conductivity. So last card in hand is Gone and Flash plus current funnel. Not too concerned. But yeah, the Glyph Overlay turn was definitely scary. I feel like that was the turn that they like maybe had the closest to coming like to like competing with us. I guess here we can go ahead and just put our Everbloom back. The Everbloom loop is also just like a very dumb interaction. Kind of basically just infinite life if your opponent is not able to present damage. Yeah, I think at this point this is basically just GG's. I guess I could have also blocked with the Rampart, but maybe we'll give them the 1 point of health. I think that's fine. And then to end the game, hopefully this Cranial Crush will do it. I guess it doesn't fully do it because they can still block with Tunic plus Current Funnel, but I think they're maybe seeing the writing on the wall finally. All right, so that was a pretty good one. Yeah. Yeah, Fatigue Jarl is definitely a lot of fun. All right, so that was Jason Rolf's list again from the Calling Copenhagen. Again, he's a better pilot than I am of this list, so I'll leave a lot of the kind of like deck building choices and decisions to him. If he goes and puts out like a deck tech or something on that, I'll probably link it in this video because I tried to at least if I cover someone else's list on the channel, I try to link to like their stuff before my stuff. But again, I'm not entirely sure if they're gonna put out a deck tech, but again, I would definitely be interested to kind of like see what they have to say about this deck. I think there's a lot of really cool ideas. I think that this is a really good meta call, right? Like you basically are betting that you're going to be able to fatigue gravies. You're betting that you're going to be able to fatigue slippies. I think both of those are correct. Again, like the fatigue respect has generally not been super high right now, just because of the fact that decks like Verdance exist, decks like Gravy exists that with like double whaler and stuff can prey on fatigue. There's decks like even Slippy, like you can set up some really interesting like late game cycles in that deck as well, which are sometimes a bit tough to beat. But I think there's a lot of good ideas in this deck. Again, you're just running a lot of the generically good cards, not even Guardian cards, just a pile of generics, right? And sometimes like it's a really good meta call to just like bring a pile of generics and just make people deal with it. And like yeah, as we kind of saw in the Calling Copenhagen, at least a lot of players could not deal with it, which is really cool. So yeah, again, this is Jason Rolf's list. I think he also goes by like Carlim online. So yeah, really cool list. I think there's a lot of great ideas. Again, I think this is also inspired by like Michael Metallo's list from another tournament, and then I think Pablo Pintor also like played a almost a very similar to this list that was also inspired by like Michael Metallo's list. So anyways, very cool list. Definitely not for me as a content creator because I think it's kind of boring. But I think like if you were to take this deck to a tournament, as long as you can like play fast, this is a really cool deck. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And again, if Jason Rolf ends up putting out a deck tech, I'll probably link it in the description here. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.